The UFC is making sure this year is stacked for sure. 2023 marks the 30th anniversary of the promotion after all, and to celebrate they matched Jon Jones against Ciryl Gane, which Dana White claims is better than Jones versus Ngannou. Yeah, I know guys, but let's hear what he has to say. Dana believes that the new matchup is much more hyped than the original one. It's simply because Jones was the favorite against Ngannou, but that's not the case against Gane. In the upcoming battle at UFC 285, the Frenchman is favored to win. Well, according to Dana. I honestly don't see it, and I'm sure most of the fans don't either. But White believes that Gane will have a clear advantage over the GOAT, cause he might be a heavyweight, but he sure moves like a middleweight.
Oh, he's going for it. He's looking for the heel hook.
That's a fact, though. Von Gammon has got some slick moves inside the octagon, and he definitely moves too well for a man his size.
On the road tonight.
But does that mean he's the favorite going into this match? I really doubt it. We're talking about a guy who never had a bad fight in his whole career, whose only loss was because he was disqualified for mauling his opponent beyond recognition. A guy so skilled that he used to party the night before his fights and still showed up to dominate the cage.
For the winner by unanimous decision, and still
And Dana thinks he can convince the fans that Jon Jones is the underdog? This kind of makes me want to laugh, but he's trying to do his job and sell his pay-per-views, something he often neglects to do. Take the super fight of the decade, for example. Yep, I'm talking about champ versus champ, pound for pound number 1 versus number 2, the two most dangerous men on the planet. Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski.
I think what's going to be interesting to see who has the advantage. Oh, big left hand. That's it. Wow.
The only promotion for this war in Perth started 4 or 5 days before the fight night. This obviously raised some eyebrows. Instead of promoting this, Dana was focusing on his new TV show, the Power Slap League. But since Jones is coming back now, and the amount of attention he gets in the US, it makes sense for the UFC to promote him as much as they can, because he also rakes in a huge number of pay-per-view sales. He is the OG GOAT, guys, and the hype is very real around him. Jon Bones Jones is finally coming back. Let that sink in. After spending more than 3 years on the sidelines, the best fighter on the planet is back.
Jon Jones remains the UFC light heavyweight champion.
He was set to face the former UFC heavyweight champion, Francis Ngannou.
He's fighting at range. Arlovski fires, just misses. Ngannou comes over the top of the left and boom, beautiful follow-up to his counter with that right hand.
But the Predator decided to walk away from the promotion. So even though I wasn't a fan of this new matchup against Gane either, there's really no one else Jones could fight in the division. This isn't as stacked as the flagship lightweight division. So what if he's been inactive for 3 years? He's been largely undefeated and has been the most dominant fighter in the history of the sport.
5 seconds on the clock in the second. He's got a choke. Trying to choke him out and finish the fight here. Leona's in trouble. Trying to finish this fight. Jon Jones remains.
Bones has been confirmed to return at UFC 285 in March, but he won't be competing in the light heavyweight division. Even before he took an extended break, he wanted to fight in the heavyweight division, and that's where you'll see him next. Yes, it'll be a title fight. That's what's befitting of Jon Jones after all. While Ngannou might not be with the UFC, the show will go on, or so the promotion has promised us. If Bones can translate his fighting IQ and range of skills to the heavyweight division, he has the chance to become a 2-division champion. He did become the youngest champion in the history of the UFC, and then went on to mop the floor with everyone in the light heavyweight division.
Now he's going for Kimura. It's all over. Jon Jones remains the UFC light heavyweight champion.
What's more is that we might get to see more of him this year. He has promised his fans that he's going to fight twice in 2023. But first things first, is Ciryl Gane really up to the challenge? Chael Sonnen reminded his viewers on YouTube that Gane is 1-1 in his last 2 fights. Von Gammon got out-wrestled by a non-wrestler in one of those fights, and he got outstruck by a non-striker in the second one. This just doesn't make sense to Sonnen. How could he be given a title shot? And that too against a guy who hasn't fought for 3 years. He does have a point there, but the good thing about John is that he's consistent and he does what he says he's going to do. Why? Well, because John Bones Jones is a clinical narcissist. Hey, those are not my words. That's what Sonnen thinks of the UFC legend. He said that Jones has promised the fans 2 fights this year, and he's going to give us 2 fights. But how is being a narcissist a good thing? Well, according to Sonnen, this will help move things along in the division. Because Jones has revealed his plans beforehand, the UFC can plan ahead for a couple of years. They can make good, viable matches in the heavyweight division to make it more interesting for the fans. The 45-year-old YouTuber also revealed that Bones has signed an 8-fight contract with the promotion. That means that we're going to get to see a lot more of the former light heavyweight king, but we'll have to wait and see how things play out for the heavyweight division. One thing's for certain though, this would have been a whole different fight if Francis Ngannou was still around. Even Jon Jones thinks so. In fact, he admits that he's rather disappointed to not be fighting the Predator in his comeback fight. This fight was on the cards for a couple of years now. Ngannou had called out Jones for a match, and we all thought it might finally happen this year. Sadly, though, the Cameroonian couldn't come to terms with the UFC. He decided to vacate the heavyweight title and leave the promotion altogether. While talking to MMA Underground, the UFC legend said that it does take something away from the fight. He thinks that Franek is the more intimidating fighter as compared to Gane. Not only that, but the Predator is also fairly well known in America. He's the big, scary, intimidating guy, and Ciryl is relatively unknown by the American fans. And there's also the factor that Ngannou was the champion, and for Jones, taking the belt from him would have been even sweeter. But John understands why Francis decided to leave. He went so far as to say that he respected the former heavyweight champion's decision. It's Ngannou's right to test the free agency and seek better offers. Jones also told Sports Illustrated that he's happy for Francis, and that he's glad that the Predator knows his worth. Bones reminded people that he too was in a similar situation as the Cameroonian once. He wasn't happy with the salary he was getting from the UFC back then and had to sit out for 3 years. John had his fair share of problems with the UFC. Dana White claimed that he was demanding a whopping $30 million to fight Ngannou 2 years ago. Obviously, Jones denied any such claims, but he was asking for more money to fight. Now it seems he has worked out the issues with the promotion, and like I said before, he has signed a new 8-fight contract with the UFC. The former UFC light heavyweight had nothing but words of encouragement and good wishes for Ngannou, but he also hopes that their paths will cross again someday. Dana White has a habit of giving the fans fights that they want to see, and Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou is something that the audiences would love to witness. The 35-year-old believes that it's going to happen sooner or later. I just hope it happens. Fingers crossed. That's all the latest on the return of Jon Jones, and we'll see you in the next one.